What's up, guys? It's 7 o'clock on Tuesday, and I am casting to you for game builders at Yukodit. If you are here, say hi in the chat so I know you're with us. I will hang out here for the first few minutes and just chat for a bit, and then we can roll into some learning about game making for the next hour or so. I'm excited to welcome you guys back after a week. Hopefully, you spent some of that week working on your game project. But if not, and this is the next time that you're touching Unity, that's fine too. There's always an opportunity to work on your project. And if you want to work on it during this Twitch, so much the better. I'm excited to see what you guys are thinking about this week and to hear your questions. I'm happy to troubleshoot during the cast and just in general to talk you guys through any questions or concerns you have about Unity, and then also hopefully provide you with some fantastic and fun learning for making games, which is, of course, the point of doing these lovely live casts. So, once again, yep, if you're joining us, just say hello, give me a wave. I will wave to you here on the video and, of course, let you know that I'm excited you're here. So, the plan today is, of course, to talk about some stuff having to do with the race car project that Francis is working on. We've talked a little bit about that in previous casts. And we also have some more basic Unity stuff to talk about with the projects Christian and Greg are working on. That would involve the workflow of pulling in assets, adding colliders, all the things you need to know to set up that dog player avatar to have an environment to move around in. Hey guys, hey, I see Francis in the chat. I see Greg in the chat. Good to see you guys. I hope you guys have had a good week. I guess I would say one word to describe my week, between last week and now would be fast. I feel like I was just talking to you guys right here on Twitch, and already another week has gone by, and we're getting towards the end of April. It's pretty exciting. So I hope you guys are enjoying your lives at home and doing school on the internet. It's pretty weird to do school on the internet, I feel like, but that's what we do now. So, yeah, I'm going to hang out here for a couple more minutes, see if we see Christian or Thomas. Ali should be joining us today as well. And if you guys, Greg, Francis, anybody else who's here, if you do have Unity questions, I'm happy to answer your questions right at the beginning of the live cast. So as we're waiting for folks to roll in, feel free to use this as a question and answer period, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Cool. Francis is going to share a pic of a game he's playing. That's fantastic. Francis, you can always email me screenshots. Greg, if you're having issues getting environment, fantastic. Awesome. So looks like you guys are sending me some emails, which is great. I'll check out to see. Oh, that was Christian who sent a Gmail. Okay, great. You guys both have a green. Your screen name is green in the chat, so I thought Greg was Christian there for a second. But I'm seeing Christian in the chat here, sending an email, listing out some of the bugs he's dealing with. So fantastic. And if Greg wanted to send a similar email, that would be fantastic because I can help you out with troubleshooting anything that's going on that's an issue for you. And the best way, if you're having problems and you need to progress, is to email me. Christian's been emailing me pretty regularly, and we've been making some good progress, I think. Hitting bugs is a really normal process in working on Unity. We constantly run into issues and get confused. It's sort of like you're in a maze and you're trying to find your way to the other side, but you don't have a map. So it's inevitable that you hit all kinds of dead ends as you're working through the process of figuring out how your game is supposed to work. Christian is asking, did I get the email? I just checked and I see it there. I will read here. It says, there's only a hamster cage, and then the move tool is jumping from one side of the item to another. And because of that bug, it doesn't let me duplicate items. That's an interesting effect. I've seen some weirdness like that in Unity before. And let's check out Francis hanging out here. Didn't see, I got an error on your URL in the chat, Francis, so I'm not able to hop into your Google Photos yet. You may need to reshare your album if you're sharing screenshots of games. So Christian's having some issues with moving, and yeah, Christian also saying the link doesn't work, Francis. So if you do want to share that again, we'll check it out as soon as there's a working URL there. So, I was going to do two things today. One of the things I wanted to do was show you guys some fun stuff in the racing game that Francis is working on. And then we will focus on Christian's project, and I'm going to show some basic stuff in setting up an environment and working with some of these bugs so that hopefully Christian can make progress, and then maybe also Greg. So again, Greg, if you have bugs that you're encountering or problems, just like Christian did, you should definitely send me an email and we'll work through those and see if we can make progress. Not sure if Thomas is joining us in the chat today. Thomas, if you're here, shout out and let us know. Thomas had emailed me as well and asked for some tips on setting up a custom 3D mesh for a third-person player controller. So I would love to talk about that, especially if Thomas shows up here in the chat. I will at some point do a little bit of learning around using custom 3D meshes with a third-person player controller. So let's see. Looks like he is here. All right. Awesome. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us, Thomas. Looks like the whole team is here. Great. Fantastic. Okay, guys. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some learning stuff. I'm going to just show you guys some things in Unity. And then toward the end of the cast, we'll try to troubleshoot a little bit more intentionally. So the other thing I wanted to let you know, and parents, if you're listening to this cast as well as the students, we're talking about adding an office hours session to our offerings every week. We haven't worked out the details of when that would happen yet, but you should be hearing from Haley. What we'd like to do is give you guys a chance to hop into a live chat video call with me where you're also on video, and at that time I can answer your questions. So there wouldn't be learning content in that. It would just be if you have questions or you need help, we'll have an hour where the meeting is open and you can join the meeting and come talk to me about your Unity project. So you'll hopefully soon have an additional opportunity to troubleshoot when you hit these bugs, and hopefully that'll help you guys make more progress on your projects. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we'll do that starting this week or perhaps next week. And then in the meantime, every Tuesday night, you'll be able to join this live cast where I will provide interesting tutorials and fun learning stuff about, gathering more skills and knowledge about all of the many different things you can do in Unity. So, top of my head, I'm going to start with Francis's game. So Francis, if you're watching, listen up, because I'm going to show you something really cool in the project that you've got set up. And then I'm going to demonstrate some things that anyone who wanted to work with a race car in any game project could do. Following that, I'm going to demonstrate the player controller task I wanted to show to Thomas. And then when I'm through those two things, we will address Christian and Greg's third-person projects involving environment design and adding colliders and rigid bodies to 3D objects. So that's the plan today, but listen to everything because everything I talk about is information for everybody, and it's definitely something you could use in a future game project. As you know, these don't last forever, so please think about, the fact that maybe later you'll want to do a different kind of game, and all of this information is relevant no matter what you're working on. All right, so let's hop to Unity here. Looks like I've got Christian's project open, but we're going to start with Francis's project here. So if you guys were here last week, I think everybody was, we were looking at this really cool map Francis had loaded in, and we had dropped in this this pre-made asset, this car. And what I wanted to show you guys this week is how you could actually switch out the body of this car for a custom body. And Francis had asked how to do this. So of course I thought this is the next step in a game like this. And really this kind of way of switching out visuals is something that you can use in any game object. Because one of the things that's true about game objects is the way they look is just one thing about them. It's just one aspect, and we can leave all of the scripting and all of the other functionalities, but change what we see. And so for this car, the way you would change the way it looks, you have to do a couple things. And Francis, I didn't push this yet, so you won't see these cars. I'm seeing in the chat Christian has resolved one of his bugs, which is great. Sometimes exiting the game and opening it again does fix those problems. That's always what I recommend. It's just a pain, but sometimes you have to do it. So Francis, you won't see these changes yet, but I downloaded an asset pack of racing cars here to demonstrate this idea. And I've actually got in this download a whole list of different cars. And if I click on these, I can go into prefab and check out what each of them looks like. If I click here, I'll see it on the right. That's pretty cool. Let's see what car 2 looks like. Oop, go back here. It's a yellow one. Ooh, that has a skull on it. So we got some pretty cool cars here. Let's check out car 4 and then we'll pick the car we want to do. That one's pretty awesome. Let's go with this pink one that has the Day of the Dead skulls on it. So what I'm thinking here is I want to see this custom car model functioning and driving right here as this working race car. The way I would do that is I'm going to click over here on the car, and I'm going to notice that there's a bunch of behavior here, but that the thing I actually see is this sky car. So the body, the components, the wheels, all of that is contained in this single game object. So what I can do is I can actually delete that. Now I pressed delete and it says, cannot restructure prefab instance. If this happens to you, it is a very common thing. You can click cancel. You can right click on the parent and go to unpack prefab. And now I'll be able to delete the body of the car. So I click delete and there's nothing there now. Can't see anything. However, if I run the game, let's see what happens. It might just totally break. You can see my game is down here. Ooh! Oh my goodness, it's just backing up and backing up. There's something that's not right, right? So the car is a little confused. Let's just say that. Now, part of the reason it's confused is because it's actually lost its wheels. And what I can do is I can load in this visual by coming down here in the project folder, dragging this and dropping it right on top of car. Now it's over there, it's lodged inside the rocks, and I can reset it by changing its transform back to 0, 0, 0. And now I've got this car showing up here. It's exactly in the place that the old car was sitting. And the only thing I have to do to get this to function the same way the other car did is I would click on the parent object. And what I need to do here under wheel meshes is load in the new wheels. The reason I need to do this is because this car controller turns the wheels back and forth when you turn in the game. Since it does that, it needs to know what the actual mesh for the wheel is. So I'm going to go wheel right. I'm going to drag this on here. Here's wheel left. I'll go wheel back right, and then I'll go wheel back left. And I should, just by doing that, be able to drive this new car. So we've got the game window docked kind of small down here just so I can see both. But as you can see, whoop, got a little bit of lag here going on. Let's stop the game for just a second. There it goes. There we go. So if you look at this, you can see that when I turn, the wheels turn just like it did on the old car. Oh my gosh, I've backed off the map. That's amazing. So cool, right? Now, Francis, if you want to do this with a car body that you like, the only thing that you need to make sure of is that when you download the asset, that the wheels are separate meshes from the rest of the car. And that will allow you to click on this parent car here and drag the wheels in here so that the wheels turn when you press left and right or A and D. So that's how you would set up a car to drive around. And what I would love to see for Francis is I would love to see you load in a custom car and get that running in here so that we don't just see that default Unity car, but instead something really cool looking. I'm assuming you don't want to use this one, but you know, if you wanted to, it's there, and I'll send it your way now that I've explained this. So I'm going to click Publish Now. And Francis, cool. Yeah, Francis is saying, I was thinking of something like this. So let's check this out, see what he's got loaded up there. We can check out the Nissan Skyline. Yes, absolutely. So once again, if you can find models like this that come with separate wheels, then you're golden. You know, and the thing is, if you don't have separate wheels, you can still use a model. It's just that the front wheels will just turn with the along with the body of the car. So this is a really cool looking, I'm looking at this Nissan right now behind the Unity window, and it's pretty dope. So, you know, let me know what car you end up deciding to use. And what I'd like to see is when I pull the game next, I would love to see that there is a custom car in there. Yep. Francis is saying Twitch is lagging. I just saw it was buffering. So I'm going to see if I can lower the latency here. So just hang on a second, guys, and we'll see if that improves things. All right. So I'm not sure if that's any better, but we will go ahead on forward. And I'm going to hop into Christian's Unity project, but I'm going to talk about something that Thomas wanted to do. So bear with me. We've got Christian's project here. And the thing I want to do is I'm going to download these changes just in case I can troubleshoot something with Christian's bug here. But I wanted to use this project to demo something that Thomas had asked about first. So Christian, no worries. I won't save anything I do here. I'm going to use your project just as a location to demo Thomas's question about setting up a player controller. So we'll let this load. Hopefully this doesn't pull too much bandwidth and kill my Twitch feed, but if it does, then it does. I'm going to check out this. Cool. So we got a house coming together here, which is awesome. All right. So what I'm actually going to do here, though, is I want to show something Thomas had asked about. So I'm going to open this sort of demo scene and explain something here about creating an avatar. So Thomas, if you're tuned in right now, listen up. I had emailed you some instructions for how to switch a mesh out, and I just wanted to run through how I would do that in real time so you could see how I would do it. I have this basic package I sent on, and that package comes with the cat. It comes with the cat's camera. To set it up in your own project, of course, you would need the cat or the dog. You would need the camera, targeting the cat, which of course I can target the cat by dragging the cat here. And then I need a floor to walk on. The layer of the floor is ground, and I also have the cat's grounded check layer set as ground. I see Christian's asking some questions in the chat. I will address your question next up, Christian. So thank you so much for your patience while I talk through this. So I've got this basic cat, camera, and plane set up here. And the thing I wanted to show is, what if you wanted to use this same setup, but have it be a chair instead of a cat? So I'm going to just review and make sure this works, which I think it does. Give Unity a second. So the cat moves back and forth, goes right and left, jumps, and it also happens to have this attack. Meanwhile, the mouse kind of controls where the camera is. I can even look at the cat, stand in front of it, but then when I press W or forward, the cat walks away from the camera. It's a pretty nice script. It works really well, and you don't need the cat there. It's just like what I showed you guys with the car. So if I were Thomas and I wanted to change the cat out for a chair, I would find a chair. And we happen to have some in Christian's project, which is why I'm demoing this here. And gosh, which chair do I want to use? We have so many choices. Let's use this recliner. So I drag it in my scene, and as usual, it's far away somewhere. And what I actually want out of this chair is I want it to have all of the same behavior of the cat. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it on top of cat player. And then I'm going to reset its transform so that it's in the same place. Now that's looking a little big. I've got a massive scale here. So based on that, I'm going to go 100, 100, 100, which looks a little bit more of the size that the camera is set up for. And next, all I have to do is click on the cat, which, as you can see, when it says mesh renderer, that is the picture of the cat. So when I turn that off, I turn the cat off and I immediately make it so that all I see is the chair. The rig here, this is also something related to the cat. It controls the cat's body parts for purposes of animation. So if you're not worried about that and all you want is a static 3D object that slides and moves around like a chair, you could even just remove those two game objects and just leave the chair as the sole child of the parent game object. If all goes well, I should now have a chair for me to control. Cool. So my chair's running around. It turns right and left. It jumps. And clicking doesn't do anything because the chair doesn't have an attack animation, but the functionality of attacking would probably still happen when I click. It's something you could design out. Chair turns around to come towards me. Of course, it follows the cursor just like the cat does. Whee! And this would be a great place to start if you were designing the kind of game Thomas talked about, which is a game where a chair pushes other furniture around. So, of course, with this setup, I could do something like, I'm going to put this couch in here. I'm going to give the couch a rigid body and a collider. This is just for fun, so let's just see what happens. And I'm going to see if I can push that thing with the smaller chair. And this is the kind of gameplay I was imagining Thomas was thinking of. And I can even push it over, which is amazing. Or I can just push it off of the plane and goodbye. So this, I think, is a really fun idea. And I was really excited to hear from Thomas because he always has fantastic ideas for games. And what I'm showing here is one way of setting up a player controller where you find an existing asset and then you adapt it to look or feel the way you want for your game. So in this case, the only thing I had to change was just how the player controller looks, because the way it functions has already been set up previously by me, and conveniently Thomas could use that script without having to write it himself from scratch. I say this a lot, and it's very true that if you want to write a player controller script yourself, so that would be, I'm clicking on this animal controller here, that's the script that controls the cat, or in this case now the chair. If you wanted to write a script like that, it would probably take you a few weeks. Those scripts are pretty complex and they involve a lot of physics calculations. So I often say, if you want to learn engineering, you should write a player controller. If you want to make a game, find a player controller and adapt it for your game. So that's what I'm hoping Thomas will do in his game. Thomas, if you have questions, let me know. Let's see. I'm going to move on. I saw Christian had some questions in the chat, and I want to address those questions right now. So Christian's question looks to be that he needs to sign in to Unity. And yes, you should definitely sign in because, collab is not going to work if you're not signed into Unity. So you'll need to click on account here, and there would be clicking on account some way of signing in. And if you don't remember your password, I can email you your password, which I think I remember off the top of my head, though I'm not positive. But the good news is if you're logged into your Gmail, you can also always just reset your password by clicking Forgot Password. I won't be able to sit side by side with you and do IT, but you definitely do need to make sure you're logged into Unity. All right, so let's let Christian see if he can get himself logged back into Unity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about setting up an environment. And for this, what I'm actually thinking is I want to open Greg's game and talk about Greg's game a little bit. So Christian, let us know if you make progress. If your mom has your password, that's great. You know, have your mom come over and see if she can get you logged back in. I can't say that I think that the logging in would be the reason why you're having issues with the move tool. But one thing I can say in your game is that so far, I have not had any issues with the move tool. Let's head into dog demo, which is, of course, your lovely, lovely scene here. So when I click on your objects here, I am only getting one move handle. One thing I do like to make sure of when I'm trying to move an object is I like to make sure I'm clicking on the parent game object. So what can sometimes happen, like this is an example, we got this TV over here. Sometimes if you click on something that's a child, see how this is underneath this, you'll move part of the game object, but not the whole thing. So that can cause issues with the move tool, but the basic flow you want to go through here is click on the object you want to move with the regular mouse button. Make sure this button is highlighted, and you should be able to highlight and click on the arrows. So a final thing I'll say if anyone has issues moving objects around is it's sometimes the case that you want to grab this box and just sort of move it in the world, but it's a little bit more reliable to move it along one axis at a time. So one thing I would say is, like, if I wanted to move this vase to put it over here on the couch, rather than trying to pick it up and like place it on the couch, I would actually move it only first on this axis and then move it on this one until it's in the right place. And then maybe after that, I would say, now I'm going to move this down here. The other thing that you can check when you're doing environment design is, did I get into the isometric mode by mistake? And you can end up in that by clicking on this central cube here in the upper right corner. This is a special mode that you can use to design certain types of games, but you don't want to use it in a 3D game like this one. So if you see the words ISO up here, click on this box again to put yourself back in the regular view. Sometimes that can cause weird issues with moving things around. Of course, the other thing to do is make sure you're not pressing on the other buttons while you move, and assure that the only button you're pressing is the regular mouse button, the left mouse button. Look at this cute little dog looking down this hallway. Oh my goodness, I'm such a fan of this. It's so cute. Can I just recognize Christian for doing an amazing job of setting up this little house? I'm really excited to see how this is coming together. We've got walls, we've got furniture. This is going to be amazing. So great job, Christian, and no worries about the IT stuff. We'll get that worked out. Okay, so Greg's project coming at you in just a second here. I actually need to open that when I don't currently have Unity running with with Greg's project open. So Greg, if you're there, get ready because I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your Unity development. And Christian, if you are still listening, of course, I'm going to include some stuff here about colliders. So just hang on here and we'll let Unity load. It's almost ready to go. Great. All right. So cool. I've got Greg's project open here for you guys. And I'm hoping that my face will come back in front. All right. All right, cool. So we've got Greg's project here, and of course, just a couple things, Greg, here. I'm in dog demo, and if you want to see what I've got in here and play with it yourself, you can click on the collab button up here. And if in your Unity project, you see an arrow here that's not green, you're definitely going to want to click on the collab button and click publish now. So Greg is saying I have many assets, need help to put in. That sounds great. So if you would go ahead for me and push your assets into the cloud by clicking on the collab button here, and then what you would see here instead of a check is that blue publish now button. That blue button is going to allow you to send some assets my way, and I'll show you how you might put them in this scene. Hold on, guys. My laptop wasn't plugged in. Scary. There we go. So send me your assets if you can. Again, you would click on the collab button and click publish now, and then wait for whatever amount of time it takes for the assets to upload. And while we're waiting for that, I wanted to just show you guys some stuff about, again, doing basic environment design, and in particular setting up colliders. So let's run this and just see what it's like to be the dog in this little scene I've created. So I'm starting to work on a park here. And I've got the basics, but one of the issues going on here is that some of the stuff I can kind of walk on, and other of the things I can walk through. So it looks like that stuff is intact and I can walk on it. But here, oh, that works. This one I can walk through. Cool. So looks like my connection's buffering again. Hopefully that comes back quickly. Okay. We'll hope that catches itself up and that my voice isn't way off of the way my lips are moving. So a couple of things to consider when you're laying out an environment like this is, obviously you don't want to walk through a house. And so when you bring an asset in, what you can check is to see if it has a collider. Now, what I'm going to do here is remind you how to bring an asset into the scene, which of course would involve finding the asset in the project window, which is the window at the bottom. I usually look in the prefabs folder, and I can see all of these nice pictures because I've got this doohickey all the way to the right. So if I drag it all the way to the left, what I would see is a list of all of the names of the assets. And if I drag it to the right, I can see all of the pictures. So we've got some nice stuff here. And if I want to bring it into my scene, there are two ways I can do it. What should I bring in? Well, I guess I'll grab a tree. One way is by just dragging it into the scene. So I click and drag out of the project window until it's in the scene, and then I let go of the mouse. So I'm clicking on this, I'm dragging it into the scene, and then it just shows up wherever my cursor is located when I'm in the scene. So that's option one. Option two is I can click on it and I can drag it here into the hierarchy. Now in both cases, as you can see, the one I put in the hierarchy showed up here. Oh, no, that's not even it. Where is it? Oh my gosh, it's hovering. So that's just hovering in space. And meanwhile, we've got these other ones hanging out down here, sticking into the ground. So when you're bringing assets in, of course, you have to set up where you want them to be located. And like I was saying in Christian's project, grabbing them in the center and dragging them like this isn't always the best way because, I drag it back and forth and then I drag it in what I think is the upward direction, but it goes away from me into the back of the scene. So one option is, of course, to drag one axis at a time until you place it exactly where you want it. And that would work for these pretty well. I can just about kind of set it up here right along the surface of the ground. I might even zoom in and look to see, is that hovering? I think it is hovering, right? Drag it down, oh, something like that. But then with this guy, that's going to be a pain. That's going to be really hard to get down there because I'm dragging it and I don't really know where it is in relation to that. It's just weird, right? In this case, it wasn't too hard to get. But sometimes you'll do that and then you think it's right next to it and it's totally not. I'll show you an example of this. So, if you look at that, it looks like it's actually kind of like hovering above it. But of course, if we change this here, we can see it's pretty far away. And it's a common thing to see this and be confused because you're trying to see in 3D on a flat screen. So if you get confused, like where is it actually located? One of the best things to do is just reset the transform. So I'm going to go 0, 0, 0. Puts it in the middle at 0, 0, 0, which is the point of origin in the scene. And then I can kind of drag it up here and put it with some of the other objects. So that's kind of how I would work to bring assets in. And the key, of course, is to find them in your project. Now, this is pretty organized, but I think I'm about to bring in some assets and it's not going to be too organized. So let's click Update Now. I'm curious what Greg has sent me. I'll click Save. But if you've updated Dog Demo, I'll take your changes. And so just while this is downloading, visiting the chat once again, Christian, if the password doesn't work for Unity, you'll need to reset your Unity account password. Your parents should be able to help you with that, or I can help you out over email and get you logged in after class. Addressing Greg's question, my collab says unable to send cloud services is Greg's comment. Collab actually sends that message, like it'll be a little red bar across the top of the window, like all the time. And just don't worry about it. It just kind of like freaks out. As long as you have that green check mark, you should be okay. So don't worry too much because it looks like you were able to send your assets and I'm downloading them right now. So let's see what Greg brought in. We've got Easy Roads 3D. We've got Traffic Essentials, which is great. And Greg, it looks like we're all good here and this definitely did work. So let's try bringing in some of the assets that you downloaded from the asset store. Great job finding these. So I'm going to look here, and of course, what I always look for when there's a new asset is the prefabs. So I'm going to open this prefab meshes. I don't see anything here, but maybe I can find some other stuff. Resources, custom prefabs, not much there. Materials, we've got some roads. What is this anyway? Looks like it may be a little bit of a script thing. And it looks like we've got the dog and cat inside here. So let's move that out. And we'll check the editor here. All right. So that one, I'm not seeing any easy prefabs I can use, but I'm going to check this traffic essentials because we've got a prefabs folder here. Ah, great. Okay, so this looks like a really good asset for Greg to use. And again, I'm down here in the project. I'm going to drag this little guy all the way to the right. And we've got some really fun road signs and stuff to use um, in creating a city park. So I've got this same workflow here of dragging stuff in. And then what I have to do when I drag it in is zoom in on it and make sure I know it's in the right place. I'm going to turn off gizmos. That LOD is a little bit irritating, but it's still going to show it. So that looks pretty good right there, and the fire hydrant looks good too. I drag it in, I pull it up, I pan to make sure I can see it. That's real nice. So, Greg, you brought in some great assets here. In scenes, it looks like, we've got a little bit of a strange situation going on here, but those actually look like they're still working just fine. So, I'm not sure how that prefabs folder got there, but we can actually just move these back in with the park, which I believe is where they belong. All right, so this is an example of something, we have Christians saying, oh, the move handle isn't working. And I will tell you guys right now, I have no idea why these assets are black like this in the project window. When I click on it, I can see the colored mesh right here, but for some reason it's just shadowy there. And I really don't know why it would do that. But luckily when I bring it in, it's intact right there. So the key here, of course, now let's just run around and play with some of these. Okay, so a little weirdness with the colliders. I think the dog is stuck in the table now. So, when you're in this situation, you're going to have to look at the object and see what kind of collider situation you're in. So you've got a couple different things that could be going on. In some cases, you may have no collider, and that would be this little traffic cone right here. Oop, I can just walk right through it. In other cases, like this table, it's like I'm able to walk into it, but there's something kind of on it, and the trees also come in with something on them. So if I see no collider and I want to make it so he can't walk through, I'm going to add something like a box collider here. Now, when I've added that component, I need to click Edit Collider, and I can drag these. And once it's about the same size as the thing, I can click this again. And now the dog will not be able to run into the traffic cone because it's got a collider, otherwise known as a hitbox, preventing me from walking into it. Might need to resize that, it's a little bit big, but you get the idea. So this comes with what's called a mesh collider. And a mesh collider is a collider that wraps around an object like wrapping paper. So that's causing some weird bugs with my dog. I'm actually going to remove that one, and I'm going to add a box collider. I click on Edit. It looks like it came in about the right size, so I might just test it out. I think that's going to work a little bit better for my dog. Yeah. Now my final step here, of course, why did he do that on top? Oh my goodness, he's stuck. That is because any object I want him to be able to walk on, I have to set as being the ground. And now he can walk on the table. Looks good. And he can walk through the fire hydrant, but you get the idea. It's just a bit of tweaking you have to do. And then, of course, the fun comes about in really setting this up. I've just thrown some stuff in here, and Greg, I'll send this over to you, and you'll be able to improve on this and actually make this into a scene that's really fun for the dog to walk around in. So, your first step would definitely be to set this scene up and to make this look beautiful. Um, Ultimately, if you wanted to just use these tiles, these come in with colliders on them. So you could create this as your floor and eventually just delete the plane underneath. And then all you would see was the floor that belonged to the park that you're making. So something like that, right? And I'd move my dog over. Now he's in the park. My other things will drop through space. Oh no, they're sitting there. Cool. Yeah. So you get my drift, right? Like it's a little funky. I didn't set that one as the ground, so the dog can't really walk on it, but we're getting towards something that really does look like a little park. And we've got trees hovering in space, but bye. Okay. So for Greg, the goal here is going to be to set this up to look like a park. I'm going to put that plane back in here and sort of undo my changes. Um, we've got a few minutes left, so I want to see if I can get Christian's situation working. And, if you guys have questions, ask them to me now. Ask them to me now. For Christian, I just wanted to, basically say that if you're having a forgotten password issue, I'm going to show you how that would run. So I'm going to actually sign out here. And then if I went to account and I clicked on sign in and sign into your Unity ID, hold on, let me see if this actually shows up. I'm going to wait for the feed to catch up here. Looks like it doesn't show up. Let's see. There we go. So if you ever have this issue that we're talking about with, needing to sign in again and you can't password, you will need to click on forgot your password. And clicking on this will allow you to email a reset password link to yourself. So that's how you're going to reset your account in the case that you try to log in and you can't. And if you do reset your password, just be sure to write it down. Make sure your parents know it so that you don't have to do this again. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in as me. And Christian has said click on collab. So well, I'm out of ideas towards Christian, so we'll have to troubleshoot your IT issue after the cast. Forgot password is the only way I know of to get yourself logged into Unity. So if it didn't work, I would say generate a new forgot password link and try resetting your password again. So of course, once you've reset your password, you'll have to go and sign in with your new password. So going through the process of doing the password reset just enables you to know what your password is, and then you'll still go to account, sign in, and then you'll type your new password in that login screen. So it's a two-step process, really. The first step is to reset your password, and the second step is to log in with that new password. Okay, so we're having some technical issues here. Greg is clicking and dragging, but the asset is not going into the scene. For that, I would make sure that you're actually clicking on an asset that can go into the scene. So in Greg's game, I would be definitely looking for anything in the prefabs. So here I am in the prefabs folder. I would click here just with the left mouse button and drag, and then release the left mouse button to bring this in. You can't dragging stuff like this in, other things will sometimes happen or it may not just work, um, depending on what you're dragging here. But if you're in the prefabs folder and you drag it, you should be able to bring it in. The other thing I'll say to you, Greg, if you're working on this right now, make sure you're in the scene window. So if you're in the game window and it looks like this, you can't drag in because this is only just what you see when you play the game. So up here it says game, and you need to slide over here and click on scene. And in the scene is where you'll be able to bring in your assets. Great. Looks like Christian solved the issue. I'm hoping that Greg's issue may have been dragging things into the game. And of course, I've made this mistake 1,000 times of why can't I click? Why can't I move? Oh my gosh, I see the game, but it's not letting me interact. That's when you need to look, oh, I'm in the game window, slide over here and visit the scene. And that's where you'll be able to drag in your assets. So make sure you're dragging in the right asset and make sure you're in the scene window and you should be good to go. All right, I am going to visit Francis's project here in this brand new version of Unity. Francis, if you did do any updates to this project during the cast, I would love for you to push your updates so I can see them. Even if you changed something other than the car, it would be fantastic just to see what you're working on. I know, Francis, you had said earlier you were interested in getting more maps, and I think that would be fantastic. Um, I would just look on the asset store and see what you can find. One thing I have noticed about this particular map is it's really easy to drive off the side. So I'm going to upgrade the move speed of the camera and run the game kind of big so we can see this. Let's see. There we go. Yeah. So, either the handling on the car needs to be adjusted or we need colliders on the sides of the racetrack so that the car can't just go like this. I mean, it might be worth like allowing people to drive off. It's kind of cool, but in this one it's really, really easy to drive off the side, at least with the way the car handles now. I mean, it's very unforgiving, like I go, I da da da, whoop, I'm already running into the side, and then oops, oh my gosh, I overcorrected, and now I'm off. So, I think sometimes one thing people do in racing games is they'll make there be certain areas where you can drive off, but then in a lot of the racetrack, it'll be just that if you run into the side, you just kind of hit up against the side, and there's essentially an invisible huge collider there that prevents you from driving down into, um, you know, the great beyond surrounding your thing. So that's definitely something to consider working on as well. Um, but anything that you do, I would love for you to push and show me your changes. Yes. Francis also saying, I want to add a HUD. That would be a great topic for us to address next time. Um, HUD is a super fun topic in game design, and I can show you all about how to set up a UI interface here that keeps track of things like your speed and how many laps you've done. There's all kinds of fun things you can do with HUD, but the key to it will, of course, be using those UI components. All right. So we're just about at 8 o'clock, and I'm going to help troubleshoot Greg here as we're tailing off. I'm heading back to Greg's game just for a minute, and Greg has asked a question of, I can't find the scene box, it's not next to the game box. All right, so if you ever run into this problem of where is the scene, I need to find the scene so I can edit my game, this is how you fix it. Go up here to Window, click on Window, slide down to Layouts, and then slide down and click on Default. That will reset the Unity editor, and the scene will be the thing you see right after you click on that. So that's a great way to get the scene to show up again for you, and it's what you should do right now, Greg, if you are still working on this game. So let me know how that goes. And we'll just take a few more minutes here to just answer any last final questions. Again, our plan is going to be to, offer office hours on this so that we can do this kind of troubleshooting and help you guys get on the right track. While also giving some really fun content like the stuff I showed Francis. Thomas's project with the chair, I'm also really excited about. And I'd love to continue moving all of these projects forward with some really fun game development ideas along with you guys. And that reminds me to say to Thomas, great, looks like Greg got his issue solved. Christian is logged in, so for the moment, we're doing good. For Thomas, the final thing I wanted to say is if you're able to add me as a collaborator on your project, I'll be able to log in and give assets to you if you need them instead of emailing Unity packages. So I would say that if you're interested in that, definitely complete the process of adding me as a collaborator. So once again, it's a 3-step process. It's summarized here, and if you went to makeroom.elinemedia.com/blog, you would see right here under adding collaborators to a Unity project. If you clicked on this, it would give you instructions for how to complete the process. And I think where we're at with your project, Thomas, is you added me to your organization, but you still need to add me as a member and then put me on your project. So it's a little bit of IT here, but once you've done the organization add, you invite me, and then the next thing is manage seats. You give me a seat, and then you put me on your project. So it's just a couple more clicks. And once I can download your project, I can help you out with all kinds of stuff exactly the way I'm helping Greg, Christian, and Francis. I won't do it for you, but if you're like, oh, I want to do a HUD like Francis, I can give you some basic assets to set up a HUD, and you can join into the learning content that we're doing on the live cast as well. Of course, you always have the option of just working it on your own and submitting the game when it's time to submit, which I'll maybe touch on that as my final thing here. Let's come back to my face. So we have, of course, the April 2020 challenge, which is Alone Together. and we'll be extending the deadline for submitting games. So if you're not done, obviously no worries because you've got tons of time to work on your projects, and this live cast and this class doesn't cut off at any point. The challenge just ends and then there's a new one. And of course, regardless of what you're working on, I'm here to talk to you about game development and help you get on the right track to making video games. So, the deadline will be extended for the April 2020 game for about a week. So, first week in May, those games are due. And then after that, you'll have the opportunity to continue polishing a game project that you're interested in taking to the next level. So, wherever you're at the end of this month, we'll just continue on and make your game even better, even more beautiful. Or you have the opportunity at that point later to start a new project. It's up to you. So there's lots of flexibility here. There is a deadline coming toward us, but that deadline is there for motivation and not to put pressure on you. Right now, I think where we're at in this class is we've got some folks who are figuring out that navigating the maze of the Unity editor and the frustration you guys might experience and why is this bug happening? Why is that bug happening is totally normal. This process of restarting Unity, of logging in, finding the scene, resetting the window, all of that stuff is stuff that you have to learn. And our advanced game makers, Francis and Thomas, have learned a lot of those things already. Speaking of our advanced game makers, I'm seeing a lot of exciting stuff coming from both of you guys. And what I would love to continue doing is seeing progress happening on these projects. In Thomas's, I would love to be able to download that project and see the player controller working with a chair. And in Francis, I would love to see a custom car like that Nissan and maybe some more maps. Another option would be to set the colliders up in such a way that, you can't just drive off of that road. So you've got a few things that you could work on in your game. And if all goes well, I can show you how to bring in some AI cars. So some NPC cars for you to race with, we can talk about next week. Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in today, guys. I think we got a lot done. Keep working on these games all week. Whenever you get a free moment, take 20, 30, 40 minutes and say, I'm going to improve the environment. I'm going to work on this game system. That's how real game developers do it. And that's what you guys should do, especially if you're excited about bringing a game into being. As always, you guys can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or by going to makeroom.elinemedia.com/online-learning. Our blog is also hosted on makeroom.elinemedia.com. I write several articles on there every week, and all of those are for you guys. We have articles on there about aspects of game making, game development, game design, and also some blog posts on what you should be doing for this project right now. So check that stuff out, be in touch, and hopefully I'll see you guys on an office hours session where we can continue to work on troubleshooting and progressing your games forward. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to sign out. Have a great Tuesday night. Have a great week.